Truck drivers, what's a creepy story you've got from the middle of nowhere? Hi Reddit guys, subscribe now or I will seek you. Not sure if this story is creepy, but it's definitely scary. My father was a truck driver in East Africa in the 80s and early 90s. During the years leading up to the Rwandan genocide, my father was passing through Rwanda. He reached a checkpoint and was forcibly removed from his truck at gunpoint. Apparently he looked like he belonged to the Tutsi tribe and they put him in a cage with other Tutsi prisoners. He tried communicating that he isn't Rwandan, but no one spoke the same language as him. Every night they would take about 5 people from the cage and slaughter them in front of him. After the third night, he saw a man that spoke a little bit of Swahili, which my dad spoke, and told him that he's not Rwandan and showed him his ID. Somehow that guy got him out and he was handed the keys to his truck and was on his way. Jesus. I'm so glad your dad survived, but my heart breaks for the others. I bet he had some major trauma from seeing people killed in front of him. Not op, but trauma from seeing people die does affect people differently. Big sad here. Skip for no sad faces while reading. I witnessed 2 kids murdered in the car in front of me when my mum dropped my brother off at the school. Doors were locked back in the day. It was okay to leave a kid in a car with AC. But a man who lost his daughters in a custody battle walked up to the car in front of me and shot both of them through the head. 5 shots. I saw it all. I saw him run across the street to the parking lot and blow his brains out. It's a major memory that I can't get out of my head. I hear the gunshots, the one scream before it ended, the glass breaking. I even freaking remember him closing the car door before running 20 feet and then watching him twitch before my mum and my brother's teacher bolted through the front door to get me and everyone else inside. No more big sad here. It's a memory that'll never escape me. The best thing I can do is focus on other things like friends and what's happening around me. It's such a repressed memory that I only ever think of it if someone directly asks me if I've seen someone died before. My heart sinks, and I'm flushed with a cold chill and nauseated every single time. It's okay though, great friends, and lots to keep me busy, so I don't ever think about it anymore. Well, this thread is the first time in about 2 years I thought about it, so if you'll excuse me I'll exit this thread now. But if you have something troubling you talk to people about it, or other things if you need to not think about it. I had to go to counseling for several months afterwards. I managed to pull through decently though. Don't be afraid to ask anyone for help if you need to. There is no shame. And if you have things that trouble you and you need to speak to someone, feel free to load up my inbox. I'll talk to anyone who needs it. That reminds me of an ISIS video I saw where they were pulling trucks over and demanding the drivers recite Sunni Quran verses. If the drivers were Shia and didn't know them, they would just line them up and shoot them. The world can be a horrible place sometimes. Glad your dad made it out of that one. People are pointing out there is only one Quran. I'm obviously not a Muslim so I don't know any better, but they were asking them to recite something that was interpreted differently between Sunnis and Shias. Don't need everyone pointing out the semantics. They were a-holes either way. Driving through an abandoned section of Baltimore at 3 in the morning, my CB radio turned itself on and crackled for a bit. Out of nowhere some voice over the radio said in a deep southern drawl, "I ain't got no panties on." I could see up and down the interstate 4 miles and saw not one set of headlights. That was Fred. He just wanted you to know he didn't have no panties on. Honestly, though, I have no idea why or when that started, but I've heard it for over 26 years. Leave the CB on, and you will hear it at least once a day. Always a southern drawl, and always said in a harsh whisper. I know it's a thing, and I've heard it multiple times before and since. Now, the fact that there was no one around is what creeped me out. What do you mean by, it's a thing? Like a joke or some creep code? I also need answers. My dad drove a truck between Edinburgh and London and tells this story often. He was driving down the motorway and looked to his right, saw a woman with a mistrunchable bun, as he describes it, staring at him with a terrified expression from a car next to him. Before he really knows how to react, the car pulls off at the next exit and my dad, although shaken, carries on. About half an hour later, a different car with a different driver pulls alongside my dad, with the same woman in the passenger seat, with the same expression on her face. My dad thinks frick this is and plans to pull into the next services to report, as even if it's nothing, misunderstanding. Better to be safe than sorry, right? Anyway, the car disappears before he can get any details. Plate CTC, and he thinks there is no point calling the police with no details, so he carries on driving. Literally about 4 hours later, almost in London, yet another car pulls alongside him with the same woman, same mistrunchable hair, same terrified expression, except this time she appears to be screaming at my dad through the window. So my dad pulls over into a lay-by and calls the police. Apparently they have received 3 other calls about the same woman, car in the same area in the last few minutes. It is unfortunately anticlimactic, as he never heard anything more about it, but he didn't see her again, and although he kept an eye on the news, didn't see anything about it. Hopefully it's just a giant coincidence. Who knows? The repeating nature of this one reminds me of one weird story back when I was in high school. It was summer and my dad's birthday, so we drove to a casino 2 hours away to watch a boxing match with my uncle. It finishes and we drive back the same night. We're nearing a canyon with no phone reception, so we call my mum and tell her we'll be home soon. Canyon usually takes about 30 minutes with no traffic. It's around midnight. So we enter the canyon and we're all pretty tired. To keep us talking, we start telling stories, most of them creepy stories. This goes on for a while and it feels like time is passing in a haze. We pass this butte in the canyon and suddenly I get deja vu. I'm convinced we already passed that before. All of us have driven this canyon 100 times and know the layout. We keep talking, and then we pass the same butte again. This time I point it out and my dad and uncle notice the time. It's 1 AM, and we're still not home. So we all start to get a bit freaked out. We stop talking and just watch the road slowly pass by. Now that we're paying attention though, time seems to catch up. We exit the canyon around 1:15 AM and call my mum, who is freaked out she hadn't heard from us. We still to this day have no idea where that extra 45 minutes or so went. Dang, it's way too late for me to be reading creepy stuff like this. Time gets fuzzy in the soft places. I was driving through eastern Washington on some state roads. There were no rest stops or cities, but I had done the route enough to know there were these massive dirt areas every circa 40 miles where you could park safely away from the road. I decided to call it a night and closed my blinds and laid down to watch something on my phone. After roughly an hour I hear someone try to open the driver's side door. I haven't heard any vehicles on the road the whole time I'm parked, but I get up to peek out the curtains. As I'm looking out into the blackness of the driver's side window, I hear them try the passenger side door. I peek down from the top of the curtain, but can't see anything, so I start the truck and kick on the lights. I'm fairly freaked out at this point, so I'm still not opening the curtains, but peeking through gaps. Nothing. Nobody is standing near either of my doors or parked within sightline. I take a deep breath and close the sleeper curtains too, because for some reason that's going to make things better, right? After laying back down and convincing myself that something blew against the truck and it only sounded like the doors, it was fairly windy outside and a lot of flat ground, I hear what sounds like someone trying to pry open the vents on the sleeper. The door handles start clicking again and the truck starts shifting like someone is climbing on it. I hit the little alarm button in the sleeper hoping to spook them off, but it does nothing but add to the noise of door handles, fingers tapping on windows and chassis, and the hiss of air coming out of the suspension. Then suddenly it stops. A few moments where I can only hear myself breathing and my heart pounding before I hear another truck approach and then drive by. I spent the next few hours waiting for whatever it was to come back, but it never did. In the morning I couldn't find any footprints or damage to my truck, but on every window were tiny human-looking handprints, like a toddler had licked their hand and stuck it to my window over and over. Raccoons? I love ghost stories, but I kinda love more how many of them can be explained by raccoons. I remember one on a different AskReddit thread, where a girl was terrified as a child of the ghost with little black hands that would reach through her cracked windows at night. She was very relieved to hear they were probably raccoons. Bro, that sounds terrifying even if it is raccoons, lol. Jesus Christ. Thank you for giving me a plausible explanation. This one really freaked me. Not a trucker, but I had a college teammate from Miami tell a story that he swears on to this day. He and his girlfriend were making the drive to Naples late night, on a 2-lane road through the Everglades, and had been in a line of cars behind an 18-wheeler for multiple miles. She fell asleep and he was surfing for something to listen to on the radio. Only one station came in clearly enough to be tolerable, so he gave it a listen. The DJ came on and said something along the lines of, "The stars are extra bright in the Everglades tonight. If you're driving through there, pull off and take a look." He said he normally wouldn't even think of it, but for some reason felt compelled to that night. He woke up his girlfriend. She was annoyed and didn't want to, but he convinced her it would be worth it. They stopped and just took in the stars for 5-10 minutes. He said it was the most amazing sky he's ever seen. They get back on the road and drive another few minutes and come across a massive accident. The truck they were following had jackknifed and took out a handful of vehicles that were following. He said there were multiple fatalities, but I've never been able to find a new story about it to confirm. Probably would have been in 2005-ish. They most likely would have been involved if not for that random DJ on the only radio station to come in that night. DJ Jesus. Jesus took the radio. Romans killed the New Testament star. Something similar happened to my dad. He used to leave for work at 5 AM and drive for a few hours to work. One day, he felt compelled to stop for coffee. He never did this before, and never did it since. But that one day he happened to pass an accident that just happened. He was convinced that the few minutes he took to get coffee were the few minutes that saved his life. Okay Reddit guys, subscribe now or I will seek you.